Well, hello everyone. Welcome to Rodney Veal Inspired By podcast live. So you can applaud. So it's a good thing. So yay! We have an audience, people. This is a good thing. It's a very good thing. I'm super excited to be doing it live, and I'm super excited to have a conversation in the space, the Ed Dixon Gallery, and talking to Ed Dixon. I think you are. I said it to someone before we started. I said we're going to get to know Ed. We're going to go way back in the hot tub time machine and take it forward, because I really do feel strongly that our journeys lead us to the epiphanies of where we are and where we are now and where we go in the future. So it's all there. It's like, so it's okay. Don't worry. It's a very safe space. It's all good. But Ed is really fantastic. What I love about Ed is Ed's commitment with Ed Dixon Gallery is not only to presenting local and regional artists and national artists and international artists. It's a commitment to downtown Dayton. It is a commitment to what Dayton is all about as far as art and culture and as a community. He is a community activist as well as a gallery owner, and he really feels strongly. And we're going to talk about Core 4 too. So we're going to get that all in. You guys are going to get to know about Core 4 too. It's a really fun project that we work on. That's how we know each other, because that's all Rodney ever does is work and connect and engage. But like I said, hot tub time machine time. Did you ever think when you were growing up that you were going to end up being a gallery owner? Because that is not something that a 5-year-old or a 9-year-old says, I'm going to be a gallery owner one day.
Gallery owner, no. And I think mostly because, especially growing up, it's just not something that I would have seen. You know, I wouldn't have seen somebody, especially that, looked like myself, having an art gallery. Of course, doing art, yes. I was familiar with the, famous, a lot of famous artists. But, it took a long time before the idea, finally came.
So what was the childhood dream? What was it before? I gotta know this.
It depends. I was thinking about this the other day. I think I started off with scientists because I was sure I could just fix everything, come up with the cures and all that kind of stuff. And because I was thinking about it recently, because I was thinking, why didn't I do that? But that ship has kind of sailed, but
okay.
Yeah, and then it probably from there, and then more creative things started coming along.
Coming along. So how did those creative things come along for you? Because sometimes the things happen by accident, surprise. Mine was I found out I can put a color between the lines.
Yeah, and I think I never really thought I had like talent to really be an artist or a musician or a singer, all those things which I loved, but I didn't have that kind of talent, but wanted to be affiliated with it in some kind of way. And growing up, we had, my parents were, did enough things around the house where I was aware of art and, different things. So like I said, again, I was always, aware of it, but at some point, like I said, I knew I didn't have the talent to do those things like I would want to. But I really appreciated art and appreciated music and, fashion and all those different things.
And so one of the things is because I started diving because the internet allows you to dive into someone's life. That when you talk about, you talk about music, you talk about fashion, promoting. You did promotions and for fashion shows, and you were working with musicians. Talk about that. I mean, how did you get into that?
I mean, the furthest...
Fashion in Ohio, I'm just saying.
Yeah, the furthest back, again, downtown Dayton, down Main Street. Me and some of my friends, we had a record label in, 90-something. And
record label.
It was a lot of fun. And that really probably was the first genuine effort to try and do something here, right. To not just have a record label or whatever, but have some success come out of the Dayton area. Because we have so many artists, actors, athletes, all these different things from Dayton, but sometimes their success comes after they leave Dayton.
Oh.
And so, that record label was the first attempt to really try and have somebody from here, be elevated while they're still here in Dayton.
That's what I mean. That's what I talk when I introduce you. That's what I love being around you, Ed. It's like that there's an underpinning of always thinking about it from a bigger purpose versus just I have a gallery space or I'm going to just start a record label because it's fun. It's to serve a purpose. And so I'm like, I mean that's pretty like in the 90s. That means that we've probably crossed paths and we didn't know it. and probably dancing at Dayton Ballet back in the day in the second company. For me, I was running around these streets.
Yeah. And I was out there. I was busy. From then till now, pretty interesting life, I guess you could say, when it comes to those kind of things. So, yeah.
Ed. I was like, okay. So, what other secrets can we divulge here, especially in regard to? Well, I mean, but the thing is, you starting a record company, like, was it with a group of friends? I mean, was it just a?
Yeah, with a group of friends. Actually, it was a couple ways it happened. One was I did want to kind of make music. So this was back when the MPC, I think it was MPC 3000 first came out, and all the hip hop artists were using these to do sampling and different things. And so once I got a hold of one of those, I was really interested in trying to make music. And then one of my friends played professional football, so he kind of had the money to kind of help push this forward. So so that's what happened there. So
I love the fact that do you still kind of dabble in?
Yeah, I have new equipment. I'm about to get a new piece soon.
Ooh, see, we're finding out, Ed. I'm telling you, I told you.
Not as much as I would like, though, just because I'm just scattered, and I blame not being organized because, like, the area that I like to create is kind of buried right now in other
is it buried
other
in
stuff. I wish just in stuff.
Just in stuff. Life and all the things.
Yeah.
And so talk about. I don't know how many people in this room are kind of familiar with Dayton in the 90s. That was a kind of, in many ways, like the Wild Wild West. In many ways, because there was a lot of things happening at the same time, like positive and negative, with downtown. But mostly the undercurrent of the positive. It was, like I said, when I say running the streets, yes, I did. It was back in the day. But there was this sense of no one. I'm kind of curious about you starting to have these kind of inklings and these inclinations in downtown Dayton, and just kind of describe Dayton at that time, because I think that's important, because I think it kind of informs where we're at today.
Yeah, and again, just growing up, my mom worked downtown, so I had just been coming downtown forever. So. Back when Reichs and Elder Bimmerman's were downtown, and I remember they had an eighth floor of Reichs was nothing but toys. So yeah, I mean, but that's how
I remember that toy,
and that's how different things were. Downtown back then, you couldn't even imagine something like that now today, but yeah, so since then I've been coming downtown Dayton days used to be a big deal, and so just continued to be a supporter of downtown until I became an adult, and then I just continued trying to figure out ways to support it and be here. I've had probably 3 or 4 offices downtown over the years at least. And
that's not including gallery spaces.
Yeah,
I mean that's
so
right. I mean it's one of the situations where, like I said, Dayton was such a different place and time, but it was always committed to anyone who had a big dream or big idea, that no one ever said you can't do these things. Like, so you've done music, and now, like, how did the first iteration of the Ed Dixon Gallery come about?
like I said, it was music. Then I would say,
And the fashion.
if I'm not skipping
fashion,
anything, I would say fashion probably came where I started helping because I saw somebody else trying to promote a fashion week here in Dayton, and I thought, wow, that would be great if we had that happen and become big here in Dayton. So I just went and volunteered, and that was 2012. And then, it's gone through different iterations, but I've been involved with it in some form or fashion, ever since. Yeah, so, and there's been a lot of successes with that as well, like especially individual, like designers and models that have went on to have some type of success.
Again, Dayton. It's like, you can start here and do some really incredible things. Yeah. And I is that the Dayton
Emerging Fashion Incubator? Yeah,
incubator.
Yeah, that's what it started. Yeah, that's what it started as.
Yeah, and so that's what I mean. Like your Ed works a lot behind the scenes. I'm like this. I that's why I find so fascinating because this is not it's not for the weak or the shy to want to like engage with community development and engagement and elevate a community. It's so you're committed to this in a full way, and so it's that question of the first gallery, because you talked about creativity. Like, where was the first gallery space?
Yeah, so
what prompted the idea that you needed to do a gallery?
I think somewhere during that fashion phase, I was traveling, going to like New York Fashion Week and things like that. But while I was in New York, I'm going to the museums and the galleries. And more as I did that, I started thinking about, kind of where's our version of these things. So like my initial thing was, okay, in my office, I'll have a section where I'll put up some art, which I did. Actually, I did that initially like in 2013. But I thought I would expand on that a little bit because that art was really just in the office. It didn't have its own section. So then I was pivoting to have an office with art. But before I could get there, I changed. I said, no, I want to have its own space. And so I found a space on Ludlow right next to, at the time, the FedEx Kinko's was still on Main and Ludlow.
That's right.
So
right.
Thank
you. Oh.
Yeah. So it was a little space, just kind of hidden away, kind of right next to it. And yeah, it worked out for 2.5 years until COVID hit.
COVID. Oh, the dreaded C word. Yeah. But it was so you found this space, and I love the fact that you went to New York and realized, why is it not here? And because I find that really fast, because a lot of people do the exact opposite. They think, oh, it's all in New York, let me go to New York. And it's like, no. I mean, that takes a...
Yeah, and that first space, I made it so it was kind of combining some elements of the museums, of the galleries. So that space, like this space we're in now, of course, is all like white walls, like a typical gallery. But that space had blue walls. So it felt like a museum in a sense, but then I had leather couches and all these other things. So it was really intimate too. So it just had a vibe, and that's what I was going for. And it, like I said, for 2.5 years, it worked really well. And yeah, it's reminding me that that was a spot. That was a stop on the art tour. Yeah.
Like if you were touring art in downtown and in Dayton, and stuff at Ed Dixon's, and you were, so it was a convening place. And so COVID, which I always find fascinating, like thinking about COVID altering and changing the trajectory of not just our culture and our society, but it really changed the trajectory of our arts and cultural institutions and entities and individuals. And I've always said, as the host of the art show, the art that's going to come and the processes that are going to come out of COVID, after COVID, are going to be phenomenal. And so far, that has shaped out to be very true. So I have a subject for a book. But I mean, I'm kind of curious about what when COVID struck, what was you're thinking, oh, come on.
Yeah, like, literally,
you're getting on a groove.
In January of 2020,
I
was like, yeah, this is the best the gallery has ever been.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's
It
moving
was-
in the right direction. You know, and you know, I was still learning too because you know, when I started the gallery, I didn't have any real training or anything for running an art gallery. But by January of 2020, I kind of knew what I was doing.
Right.
So then, you know,
You're
like I
getting on
said,
your stride.
yeah,
man.
I was.
Yes.
I had hit a stride, and then the next month, it started going downhill.
And I remember. I do remember. I met some really great artists there.
Yeah, and then had to, you know, pivot, and the building that I was in, you know, we were shut down, but the building that I was in didn't want to work with me at all. So, because my lease was up at that time, so I was trying to say, hey, you know, give me 6 months, something, you know, lower rent while we were shut down, something. But they were trying to do just the opposite. So even my neighbor, they raised their rent by $1,000 during that period. So I said, okay, this is my sign to leave.
Wow. That is so short-sighted.
Yeah. And that space is still empty.
Oh, I know. And
Today.
I know, by the way.
So what was that? 2020 I left. 6 years.
It's 6 years and it's still empty.
Been
So,
empty. Yeah.
so they'll get to listen to this podcast and hopefully recognize the error of their ways in many ways.
Yeah.
So because I know you transitioned from there. Was that the transition from there to the Talbot Tower?
So then I had this little small spot in the Talbot Tower that maybe was the size of my office or that room in there, and it was just a space which I was hoping would be temporary until things got better. And a place that, like, if somebody wanted to pick up some art that they saw online, at least I had a physical space that people could come. And I still did little small exhibitions in there and different things. But, you know, it was always meant to be temporary. So that lasted, I don't know, 2 years, maybe. About 2 years, I think, before things got better. And then I found that space, and I actually had both spaces for 6 to 8 months, maybe something like that at least.
Wow.
So,
yeah. So now you're in this space, and it's a journey. I mean, that's what I'm finding very fascinating. Like, you know, that you stuck with it. I mean, you know, it wasn't you like what was the stick-to-itiveness about the gallery?
Yeah, and because I had to move and put everything in storage. And even when I had the smaller space, everything wasn't coming out of storage into that smaller space. So I had to keep that storage. So that was one move. And then when I found this space, then that was another move. So it was just a lot within, 6 months. But, I had plans. I didn't want to end it. And, I just had, still visions of what I would do later, like the We're Doing It All Wrong exhibition. I knew that was in my head at that point. And so
I love that title.
So that was,
I love your title of your exhibition.
So that was coming to the point where that space was so small, I rented another space in that same building to do that exhibition because it was too big for that space.
And so, this transition from Talbot to here, like, finally you made the decision that this is the spot. You're in this space, and it's on the art hop tour. I have no other term for it other than people are aware, and there's a respect for that you are showing. Like, even with the exhibition we have, the exhibition of work we have now, the absence of color, which I find very fascinating as a title. What's it like to have a space like this, and it's not on the beaten path, but people find a way.
Right. Yeah, and it's in a decent area because the quadrant that it's in is the outer larger quadrant is a good area. It just so happens there's no other businesses on the street but me. That's the problem right now. So I'm hoping 3 or 4 other art galleries will move in, on this street.
We can only hope. Yeah, come on, folks.
Yeah, we'll get
somebody in the audience. You need to kind of open another gallery space. There's some competition. Come on now.
Yeah, but but other than that, it's great being near Riverscape, the ballpark, all the things that go on down here. So, it's definitely, an improvement in many ways from, obviously the Talbot Tower, but even the first space, it's an improvement from that. So I'm glad to be in this space the way it's laid out. And I'm glad to be physically where the space is, even though again I'm lonely on the block. With,
I'm hoping that we can change that because it's like we don't want Ed to be lonely.
I'm Bonnie Miles, Membership Coordinator of CET. Thank you for listening to Rodney Veal's Inspired By. This podcast is a production of CET and Think TV, 2 local PBS stations. As PBS stations, the work we do online, on air, and in the community is supported by listeners like you. If you're enjoying the show and would like to support our work, please consider becoming a member at cetconnect.org or thinktv.org. Plus, when you sign up to donate at least $5 a month, you'll get access to special members-only streaming videos on the PBS app through Passport. Learn more at cetconnect.org or thinktv.org.
If you're enjoying this conversation, The Art Show, also hosted by Rodney Veal, is available to stream anytime from anywhere on YouTube or the PBS app.
Like I said, this commitment to owning a gallery and a gallery space, what would be the most surprising thing to people about having a gallery that they don't realize goes into it? Because I think that there's some things that they probably are not aware of.
It's certainly a lot of work. I think what people would be surprised about the most, which I get a kick out of, is, like we're doing it all wrong exhibition, and others, people are in other states because most of the people for that exhibition are outside of Ohio. So they'll send me emails and they'll say things like, I really appreciate you and your team. Because they can't imagine that I'm doing all this by myself,
Oh my goodness!
Yeah,
and and your team.
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah, and I get that a lot. So taking down the art, fixing the walls, hanging the art, creating the labels, promoting Facebook posts, Instagram posts, press releases. You name it.
Chief cook and bottle washer. It's all. It is truly everything in there.
Yeah, I'm doing it all. So like I said, I get a kick out of that when people say things.
I would
like
love
that.
that when somebody said you and your team. Yeah. Party of one, and that's what I think for me is that you still find time to go to everything in the community. At the same time, I know. I think we're in a competition for like how can we get to every art event that's in town. So Ed and I are like we have a little friendly competition there. So talk about, because one of the things I was really curious about is like your connection to photo focus, because I felt that's a beautiful connection, and I always love the art that comes into your space. I feel like I'm purposely come to see what's hanging here for photo focus first.
Yeah. A lot of people I know aren't aware of photo focus because it's out of Cincinnati. So sometimes they're not always aware, but I think that's changing to more people because of the biennial and different things. But I've been involved with photo focus in a couple ways. I was a patron, but then also, of course, this will be my second time being in the biennial that they do. So, and I try to have local artists in that. So last time I had 5 local art photographers that were, because photo focus is
all about
lens-based art
lens-based art.
The way they reference it. So, I had some really like pieces in it that people, when I run into certain people, they're like, oh, those pieces that you had in that photo focus exhibition was, just so amazing. And particularly Shanga Freeman's pieces that he did at the VA during Memorial Day weekend, and he just captured this person who just went off. He had issues with these flags hanging with these Confederate symbols, and he just went and took down all these flags that were hanging and took the poles and then put them in the sewer. But Shanga just happened to be there, and he got some great photos, and he had maybe about 10 photos that we hung that were part of that. And when I run into people in Cincinnati and Dayton, a lot of times they're still talking about that. So
it was incredibly powerful work. It was incredibly strong from all 5 photographers. Mm-hmm. And what I love about Photo Focus is that they're based in Cincinnati, but they really do believe it's all Southwest Ohio. There's not we're Cincinnati. We're going to keep everything in Cincinnati. And that's, I love that approach. And that's why I'm like, oh, yes, thank you. Thank you for thinking bigger than. Mm-hmm. And the fact that you're open to showing the art. And I remember that was a hopping opening. And so it's really some really great stuff. And George Changa Freeman, if you ever see his work, you need to go. If you see his name attached to anything, run. He's capturing some really cool images. Yeah, he's doing it, real deal. And so now we're at this juncture of like the coolness factor, and community engagement. So we got to talk about Core 4. So full disclosure, Ed and I are on the committee called Core 4. I want you to explain it. Oh, and I'll help. I'll assist. Yeah, because it's a really neat project that we're working in, so it's really cool.
And I wish some of the other members were here so they could easily give you the 4 tenets of the group. But a lot of it is really just promoting, and that's one of them. But it's about promoting Black art, but largely getting people to look at it in different ways and think about different things, as promoting it, but how you collect it, how you preserve it. And I'm probably hitting on some of these tenets as I'm talking, but I think that's at least 3 of them right there.
That's 3 of them right there, yeah.
Yeah, and so, and as part of that, we actually did a podcast here with a major art collector who has a phenomenal,
Elijah.
Really ridiculous collection of artwork that is shown all over the country, is in museums and different things. And Rodney did a interview of him for his podcast. And
it's one of the things that with the Core 4 is that it was this idea that we as just a group of people could just get together and decide to do events that help elevate, that they and connect people and highlight and carry forward the conversations, because there are a lot of organizations, there are a lot of individuals, but there are a lot of organizations in our community. There are gaps and spaces where we can fill in, and we just took it upon ourselves to do it. We're talking about not knowing what we're doing. We just got
it's not an LLC, it's not a nonprofit.
No nonprofit. We're just like
people that got together and had
an idea, like let's put on a show. And Elijah is this major collector, and we've had him on the podcast, and I encourage everyone to go and listen to it. If you saw him, you would think just an average guy, but we're talking serious, hardcore New York City, Miami, London base collector in Dayton, Ohio. We're talking serious. Not he's not playing. We're talking Art in America. We're talking New York Times. We're talking that level, and he's amongst us. And so that's a thing. That was what we were, that you can start your own collections. And I think that he doesn't come. I don't believe he comes from an art background, if I remember correctly from our conversation. I think he just loved art. He just loves art. So Elijah restores homes and buildings, and that's how he makes his money. And he takes his extra money and he goes and he buys this fabulous art, and he has it stored, and he shows it Art Basel. I always get that name wrong. So is it Art Basel or Basil? Basel. Thank you, because I will screw up a pronoun if there was one to exist. And so he's with the big dogs out there doing it from Dayton, Ohio, so and from Southwest Ohio. And I thought it was pretty cool to get his take and his story on it. And so I always think about Ed's gallery as a space, as a starting point to someone collecting, because Ed is so approachable and it has a comfortable vibe. And it's like, so talk about what you would to someone if they were kind of afraid, because this is going out there, like they don't know how to start collecting art. What advice would you give to them?
Yeah, I mean, because you get people that are afraid to just come in the door. They don't know if it costs to get in. You're starting there. So, it's about letting people know that, of course, first, it's free to come in. Just come in, take your time, spend as much time as you like looking at the art. But, I always tell people is your opinion is the only one that matters. That's the biggest thing. You don't have to know the fancy words and the lingo, or, it's about if you like it, what do you like about it? And that's really all that counts. Because even, especially, a lot of people will say the same thing. But, if you're collecting art, the main thing is to get pieces that you love, no matter how much it costs. Don't worry about if it's, lower price or even if it was higher price. But the fact that you love it means that if it costs $20,000 today and then it's only worth on the market $2,000, but you still love it just as much when you walk in the door, that's all that matters. So if you're buying with that intent, then your collection will, bring you joy for years to come, and which is should be the point of the artwork.
Say that again, please, because I think people need to understand that it is about, you have to enjoy it. You have to. There's a lot of hard work that goes into making art, but it's done out of love and joy, the joy of. It's painful. And I got a couple artists in the space who are like, yeah, Rodney, this is grueling work, but it's not so grueling that it doesn't stop us from getting up and doing it every day. And so that joy part. And so that's what I love about working with Ed with Core 4, because we've done these events and we've had events at Black Palette Gallery. We've had events here at Dixon's. We've met some incredible people in these conversations, and that's a big part of it. And that's why I find it very fascinating as a gallery owner, like you and your team. How do you find the time to do Core 4? Well, I should be asking the same thing of myself, but I'm asking you. Like, how do you find the time to do all of these things, and why?
Yeah, I mean, it's like, I guess with everything, you find time for the things that you want to do. If you didn't do it, it probably wasn't something you really wanted to do. It's not as much as you thought anyway. So, but this is something that I enjoy, because people ask me all the time, because I talk about how challenging doing the gallery itself is. And, like financially and everything, it's a huge challenge, but I enjoy it. So, and there's times where I just like, oh yeah, I really love doing this. And sometimes that's just when I finish putting up all the artwork and I take a step back and just look at, how well it looks in the gallery, and then what I accomplished, and just how much is connected to the outside world. Because if I'm doing an exhibition that has 25, 30 pieces in it from probably 20 different states, that's a lot of connection to Dayton, Ohio, to other places, and the themes within it, and there's just so much that goes into it, and I just enjoy it. So
I love the fact that you step back and you take it all in.
Yeah, I try. Yeah, I try, and sometimes it takes a while, but at some point, I always have to. It may be the next day that I walk in, and it's like, okay, now I really see it. Because at some point I'm just working, I'm measuring and doing all these different things. So I'm not quite
with you and your
in that.
team.
Yeah,
you and
me
your
and my
team
team
doing
are
all the work.
doing all that. So it may take the next day before I can take a deep breath and walk back in and just look like, oh wow, this is really beautiful, that kind of thing. So
I love it. Is there a dream artist or exhibition you would love to do in this space? If money was no object and your team was available?
Yeah, I don't know. That's interesting. I can't think of anything in particular. The only thing is there's an artist in Dubai and Germany. She goes back and forth in between, but back to COVID, she was supposed to come here and do an exhibition back then, and so it just hasn't worked out since then. So we're still trying to figure that out. But at some point, that exhibition is going to happen. So.
Oh, that's really cool. Like I love the fact that you have these international connections to artists. And so how much of your time is spent going outside of the Dayton region to look at art? How are you finding these artists?
Yeah, well, and that answers kind of one of your questions earlier too. When it comes to finding artists, I don't find artists; they find me. So I rarely find an artist. It's usually somehow, we might just run into each other, but they're reaching out, different things. And that's the thing. I have so many artists that I run into that way that I don't really need to go out and look. Now, in a sense, when I do, I do calls for art sometimes. So you can say, in that respect, I look for artists. But for the most part, it's all organic, just running into artists, meeting people. Of course, everybody I meet knows an artist or, or is an artist.
That's so true.
Yeah.
I have a friend of a friend. My mom makes art. Yeah. But that this goes into the next question is like, what would your advice be to artists in building a relationship with a gallery and with a gallerist? What would you say things that they might need to know before they step into this realm?
Yeah, well, I'm glad you said that too. What you need to know before, because I think you need to be ready in a sense, and ready. When I'm saying that means you have your artwork is ready for presentation. So, because a lot of artists, they're not thinking about that far ahead necessarily, like simple things like making sure that there's a hanger on the back of your artwork. So when you give it to me, I can put it on the wall. Yeah.
I mean, it's that sometimes it is that simple.
Yes, yeah, sometimes it's that simple. But, when you're creating the work, making sure that it's presented in the way that you feel comfortable with, and that, I would say even maybe that you're proud of, but, that the edges or the framing or whatever it is, that you put your best effort into those factors so that when it eventually ends up in somebody else's home, it looks, like that, like I said, it presents like you would want it to. And then that's just a kind of cosmetic thing, but also when it comes to being ready, I don't expect, artists always to be just seasoned business people necessarily, of course, because they're worried about art. But, you have to familiarize yourself with those kind of things, kind of know what to expect when it comes to commissions and different things, and be ready to be still a spokesperson for your art. So ready to do an artist talk or ready to talk one-on-one with a viewer, somebody who's just in the gallery and wants to know more about your art, or a big-time collector that wants to know more about your art. But, yeah, just being ready for those things and, not just showing up with the piece that you did and thinking that's all you need to do because, it's more than that.
Oh, thank you for saying that because it's really, really true. I think a lot of I was thinking about this. I was having a conversation with Megan Flynn and Teresa Vanden Sorg, who are going to be on the podcast, and they are choreographers. And we talked about going to grad school, and they never taught us how to present our choreography and our work to the public and talk about it. That was like a missing gap. It's really, really, really fascinating. And so I always think about that in terms of artists and how you present and how you talk about your work, because it does matter. It does matter that, you be able to passionately talk about like why you love what you do and why you made the decisions that you made and directions that you're going.
Yeah, because a lot of times people buy the art, but they're buying the artist too. So, that makes a big difference. There's a lot of pieces that sell specifically, just because somebody got to talk to the artist and find out a little bit more behind the piece than what was obvious on the front, or a little bit more about that artist. And that is what pushed them to say, to really connect with that piece. So they connect with the piece and they connect with the artist.
And that's one of the, I think what makes Ed's space and Ed's gallery great and Ed great is he's bringing it down to a level where you can access it and take your time with it. I think that's the other part of the factor as well, is that, the buyer has to kind of consider their relationship to the art as well, and they need time to consider it. And so it's not just a rash decision, although I'm an impulsive buyer. I'm an Aries. I see it. I like it. My phrase is, I'm done. If I say I'm done, I'm in. I'm all in. I've done that on many occasions. I have a lot of stacks of art to prove that. But what would you say to the buyers, a thing that they should be prepared to do as a collector before coming into, once they get comfortable in the gallery space? What are things that they may be surprised that they don't realize are options, and when it comes to obtaining art?
I think one thing people don't think about is, you don't always have to buy art flat out. There's always ways to do installments and different things. I mean, and when I say that, there's stories of people buying like Andy Warhol pieces, I don't know, 50, 60 years ago, that piece may have been $1,500 and they couldn't afford the whole $1,500, but they came and put $50 on it or whatever it was and ended up with this Andy Warhol piece, because they loved it. And so they loved it enough to do it that way. And it wasn't Andy Warhol at the time, air quotes. But because of that passion that they had, they ended up with a piece that, could be worth 6-7 figures now.
So it's like, it's layaway is an option, and art is basically what you're telling me, Ed, that layaway is a possibility.
Absolutely.
And I love that. I love that because I think that's Blue Light Special. I love that. And I think that's dispelling myths. And I think that's one of the reasons why I love doing this podcast and having these conversations. And I knew I had a conversation with Dana Wiley. I've had a conversation with Ed. I'm looking forward to getting with a gallery owner in Cincinnati, and just because there's common threads and just constant reinforcement of these things, that this world is not the art world is not there's a belief that it's about locked doors and closed doors. That's myths. That's a trope. Southwest Ohio, you can't have locked doors. We're friendly. We're Midwesterners.
Yeah, especially in Ohio. Yeah,
we're aggressively kind.
Yeah, the art world is a special place. There's galleries that in the world, and probably in New York, where there's pieces that it's on the wall, but they won't let you buy it, unless they decide that, you're worthy or, whatever to buy that piece. But, in my mind, that's a whole nother world. So I don't, that's not about the art necessarily anymore.
That's not us. Not us. Yeah. And so, as we wrap it up, Ed, what's your hope for, because you're doing all of these things, and I think I'm kind of curious about what you hoped the future of art and culture in downtown Dayton, because you really have made it about a very regional presence. what would your hope be for the future of this?
Yeah, I would like to see, just more emphasis put on it. And at some point, when I was on Ludlow, and I probably can't remember the whole vision of this, but I know I probably asked the Downtown Dayton Partnership or somebody to like put up flags down the street, because at this time they were kind of doing that, putting those flags, banners up on the poles. And I wanted, because the PNC Art Annex I think had just opened, but anyway, I wanted it to be like a district. So it was going to be, I forget what the L was. It was LEAD. And so whatever that, probably Entertainment Arts District. What's the Ludlow Entertainment Arts District. So it was going to be LEAD. So I wanted flags all the way down the street, and then hopefully more art to come, and then that whole street be a district. And so, you can imagine, you come, you park, and now you can walk from, say, 4th Street to maybe even Monument, and that whole street would be filled with, arts and entertainment, which the Schuster would be part of, and different things. So, I would like to see something like that still happen downtown and in Dayton. Yeah.
I love it. See, that's the reason why we had you on the podcast, Ed. This is why we're having this conversation. You are a leader, and that the arts, our folks in the arts can be leaders. And I'm hoping that our leaders, or elected officials and our business leaders, listen to this, especially in regards to leasing spaces for art and culture, and our community leaders for figuring out ways to integrate the arts into the conversation, because it's important. It's important. Yeah. It's an industry, and you're doing Ed is quiet in many ways. He's a quiet force, and he's making things happen behind the scenes. That's why we brought up Core 4, but he's doing the good work, and so I'm glad we had this conversation together.
Yeah. Thanks for having me on.
There we go.
Yeah.
Give it up for Ed Dixon.
Yeah. Thanks.